more and more order, more power. And this is really that kind of dynamism in the human body that is so characteristic of all living systems. So how do we tap into this coherence? Because if we look deep within nature, we find that it's a very fundamental source of nature is this field of intelligence, which has pure order in it. Well, we tap into this through our brain. And our brain is this marvelous instrument that allows us to experience every level of creation. The brain is also that area which houses all of our habits, all of our behavior. So if our brain is orderly and coherent, then this is reflected in our behavior. If we have some particular habit that is not so good for us, it's inscribed in the neural circuits in the brain. And they're like highways in the brain. And so you might learn something when you're a young child. Say your mother wants you to be on time always. And that habit is inscribed at a very young age. And for the rest of your life, it's huge. If you want to change that habit, you literally have to create a new highway. And you can see this little road next to the big highway. It starts off small. And the only way it gets big is through use. The brain has this amazing ability of use it or lose it. We call that neuroplasticity. It pretty much continues throughout our lifetime. We can change the brain through any experience we have. When we're young, we get 24 million new connections every minute. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on in the brain in a young child. So all these new connections are taking place. Every experience we have, as I said, changes the brain, and it changes our behavior. Now, in today's world, we're very much addicted to stress. The experience most people have is stress, and this is a very, very difficult time, COVID, with all the repercussions. So this is the kind of neural circuits that are being inscribed in the brain. There's one area, the amygdala, which is sort of a tiny area in the middle of our brain, which houses all of our fears, phobias, and it just constantly interprets events in the world as being stressful. And this sets up a whole response in the physiology, which essentially creates incoherence in our brain and in our physiology. This is another book that I wrote with my son, Ted, and my wife, Samantha, and it talks about how to change habits. And again, it's all based on this idea of coherence and the brain. In this book, we have a kind of a nice principle in total brain coaching where it goes by this acronym Dharmic. And probably many of you have heard the word Dharma, which simplest definition means your path in life. So the D stands for discover your energy state. The H stands for harnessing neuroplasticity in the gut-brain axis. The A stands for attention. The R stands for rhythm and resonance. The M for matrix, a feedback matrix. I for improve and integrate, and C for celebrate. So let's just have some fun and go through a little of this because it's relevant. It's the same theme that's in both these books, which is creating coherence is the basis for changing your physiology. So in this first notion is discover your energy state. And in a broader context, it's the notion to discover who you are. Maharishi would say this is the most fundamental thing we can do. How can we do anything unless we know who we are? And of course, the essence of who we are is that field of pure consciousness, that field of pure intelligence that we experience during transcendental meditation. But we can also use Ayurveda. And Maharishi brought out what's called Maharishi Ayurveda, which is a very profound knowledge, which helps you understand yourself in terms of your physiological characteristics. And it's normally called your dosha, but we call it your energy state here just to make it simpler to understand. So we typically ask people to take a quiz. So you're going to get to take a quiz right now. Okay, here's the quiz. Now there are 3 pages. And what I'd like you to do, if you can grab a piece of paper somewhere and a pencil. I know that might make you leave your spot and find one somewhere, so I'll wait a minute or two. Okay, now see if you can answer these questions. And many of you may already know whether you're Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. We call it your V energy state for Vata, but for those that don't, let's see if you can go through this questionnaire here. So what you do is you look at the question, the statement, light sleeper, difficult falling asleep, and you either disagree or agree. If you agree, it's a high number, a 5. If you disagree, it's a 1. So this kind of tells you a characteristic of Vata or the V energy state. They are light sleepers, and they usually have a difficult time falling asleep. So just give yourself a 5 or a 1, whatever you are there. And then next question, do you have an irregular appetite? Again, just give yourself one of those numbers. You don't have to think too hard, just write it down. Do you learn quickly but forget quickly? A wonderful characteristic of Vata. They can memorize things fantastically fast, but they do forget quickly. Easily become overstimulated. Vatas tend to be more sensitive. Does not tolerate cold weather very well. Again, just, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, don't worry about it. A sprinter rather than a marathoner. You're very quick, but you don't necessarily have endurance. Speech is energetic with frequent changes in topic. If you hear Mario and I talking, we can change topics pretty quick. So we have a little creative Vata in us. We like to move from one topic to another. And when a Vata is imbalanced, they can be anxious and worried under stress. Okay, so just add those up real quickly, and that gives you your V score. And if you want to, you can enter the number in the chat just so everybody can, you don't have to, but everybody can have fun seeing don't have to put your name, but that gives you a fun idea of what everybody else is doing. Now you look at the P energy state, and again, answer the questions the same way. So in this case, boy, I just went back one. I can't read that first question. Let's see if I got to move something here. Sorry. There we go. So easily become overheated. That's a characteristic of a Pitta. So give yourself a number. Strong reaction when challenged. Uncomfortable when meals are delayed. Another very common characteristic of a Pitta. Good at physical activity, often athletes. Again, just, throw down a number, 1 to 5. Strong appetite, 1 to 5. Good sleeper, but may not need as much sleep as others. Good. Clear and precise speech. This is often true. Pittas can be very good speakers, but when they become unbalanced or under stress, they can become irritable or angry. Okay, so just, give yourself, add up those numbers from the 1 through 8, and that'll be your P score. And if you want to, you can enter it into the chat. I'll give you a few minutes. Everybody probably didn't bring your calculator with you, so you got to go the long way and add up all the different numbers. Okay, and then the final one is whoa, what just happened there? Let's see here. I jumped ahead. Okay, K energy state. So if you're a slow eater, then you can give yourself a 5. Falls asleep easily but wakes up slowly. If you have any Kapha kids, take a little while to get up in the morning. Takes a while to get them ready for school. Steady, stable temperament. That's another characteristic. Doesn't mind waiting to eat. It's very interesting. K or K energy state or kapha can skip meals and not be bothered, whereas a P, they skip a meal, it's a disaster. Slow to learn, but rarely forget, sort of the opposite of vata. Good physical strength and stamina. Speech may be slow and thoughtful. And again, if you're under stressed or imbalanced, you can get these odd characteristics like being possessive or stubborn or even lethargic. So just, write down your score. And as I say, if you want to enter it, that's fine, into the chat. And, Mario, look at the chat for me because I don't have it up. If you see any questions, if people are upset I'm going too fast, I mean, how could I possibly go too fast? Then let me know and I'll slow down a little bit.
Okay.
So let's see here. So now you have a score. You have a P, a V, P, and K score. This gives you an idea of what your energy state is. And it's usually a combination of 3 numbers. The highest number is your, and this, by the way, this all comes from this beautiful Vedic tradition. Ayurveda is a wonderful, marvelous tradition, one of the oldest systems of health in the world, and Maharishi revived it beautifully. So if you, typically you might have, say, maybe your highest score is P. So that means you're P, and then the next score is a V. So that would mean you're a Pitta Vata or a PV energy state, and maybe the kapha is a little lower. Sometimes, and this is kind of rare, you have all 3 scores equal. That's kind of a very interesting tri-dosha state where all 3 are balanced. And this all means something. We have a program at our university, a master's program in Maharishi Ayurveda and integrative medicine. We have hundreds of students in it right now, nurses, doctors, yoga teachers. And they all know how to do this, how to assess somebody's mind-body state. They can even do it with a pulse, an amazing system where they can take the pulse and they can actually determine what your balance is. If you're Pitta imbalanced, Vata imbalanced, what's your predominant dosha? So it's very fun, very beautiful tradition. Now, this is a slightly mind-boggling slide here. This would knock out most people. It's very cool though. It's a new field. It's called Genomics. And there's a lot of papers on it right now, and this is one of them. And it's an attempt to connect your DNA, your genes, with your characteristics. In this slide, what you're looking at is they're looking at all the different characteristics in your body, which is determined by your genes or genomics. And then they're seeing how they map into either Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So it's a beautiful area. It really promises to integrate modern medicine and Ayurveda in a very sophisticated, marvelous way that will help both Ayurveda and modern medicine. There's a new area in modern medicine. It's called P4 medicine. And it really has all the same principles as Ayurveda. It predicts, prevents, it's participatory. It's all these different characteristics that are there, preventative, that are both in Ayurveda, this 1,000-year-old tradition, and this new field of medicine. So this just summarizes the VPK. So individuals with a V energy state are creative and energetic when they're in balance, but they can get anxious and easily distracted when out of balance. The kind of key for a V energy state person is to have a very good routine and stay grounded. And another great trick is to sip hot water. Just sip hot water throughout the day, and that has a marvelous effect on maintaining balance. P energy state, these tend to be goal-oriented, discriminating, and when they're in balance. When they're out of balance, these are the ones that can get angry and aggressive. They need to eat on time, and they can't become overheated. If one of those 2 things happen, that's the real triggers for them to get out of balance. So making sure they eat on time. My family, make sure I eat on time, for sure. K energy state. K energy state individuals are known to be steady, thorough, and kind when in balance, but they can be lethargic, stubborn, and even depressed when out of balance. And for them, the most important thing is to be physically active and to have social interactions. Get off the couch, take a walk, do things. Very critical. And in COVID, this can be hard. So you have to figure out ways of doing this so that you're not sitting at home alone and not being active. So this is the second of those 7 principles I gave out. It's harness neuroplasticity and the gut-brain axis. Very, very interesting concept for how to change habits. Okay, the basic notion here is that it's easier to create a new habit than change an old one. And this is its neuroplasticity. You can change the brain. It's amazing. It has this plastic nature. It's flexible. It can be changed. And so this really involves rewiring in the brain. It's fascinating. And in our program of Total Brain Coaching, we actually have an online course right now. It's an amazing course. My son and I are giving it, and we have all these great executive coaches who've been on talking about it. We had, the last one was Dr. Warren Blank, who gave an incredible presentation on coaching. Really fun. This is one of the many online courses that are available at MIU. So in this, we make a habit map and a habit plan. I don't think I have time to go into that right now, but we do certain things, like we try to increase your energy before you make a habit change. Okay, so what do we use to do that? Well, we use different coaching techniques like self-coaching, personal coaching, group coaching, environmental coaching. Each one of these is like a whole lecture unto itself, which we talk about in this course. But the real great aspect about Total Brain Coaching is that we use a super habit. And what we use is Transcendental meditation, because it really helps you change all other habits. What do we mean by a super habit? Well, this simple process of transcending, of going from the surface of the mind down to the deeper levels, that's a new experience. Your mind and body's never had that. The brain's never had it. So what happens? You rewire your brain and you create these super neural networks. And I know Dr. Fred Travis will be talking this afternoon, and he'll give a lot more details about this. We have him speaking at our course this Sunday, talking about the neurophysiology of leadership. I'm just working with Fred. He's written a beautiful paper on the neurophysiology of wellness. It's just so cool that you can think of all these changes in terms of a rewiring of the brain. This was one of Marshy's great genius. He was able to reinterpret the whole idea of enlightenment, of these mystical experiences, and say, no, this is normal. This is what we all should be having. And it's just a matter of rewiring the brain. And every time you transcend during meditation, you're rewiring the brain. So cool. And that's the super habit that really helps you change all other habits. And there's a wonderful book called The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. And he talks about what he calls them are keystone habits. Same idea as a super habit. He talks about changes in the brain. So this is well known that if you can start with one powerful habit like transcendental meditation, and we don't normally think of it as a habit, but it is. You do it twice a day, every day, that's a habit. Now, also connected to the brain, we now know, is the gut. And we have this much, much deeper understanding of what's going on in the gut. And I would say today, throughout the world, we have a gut crisis. So many people are having a difficult time with gut problems. And what we now know is there's this gut-brain axis, which is the nervous system, the endocrine system, the immune system, what's called the enteric nervous system, which is the nervous system around the gut, the enteric endocrine system around the gut, that's the endocrine system around it, and the gut bacteria. And the gut bacteria are hugely important. This is the microbiome, the gut microbiome, and it affects your behavior. Here's a bizarre study at UCLA where they took about 40 women, and half the group, they gave a placebo, and the other, they gave what's called a psychobiotic. Now, you've heard of probiotics. Well, they came up with a new name, psychobiotic. Believe it or not, all the drug companies are looking for this. And what they did is they showed these women these terrifying films, and then they looked at brain imaging. And so you can see in the placebo group, that's quite a large reaction in the middle of the brain there. And then when the group they gave the psychobiotic, that reaction was diminished. So, and that psychobiotic was just a simple probiotic. So these friendly bacteria you're taking in your gut are communicating with your brain, and they're changing the way you react to stress. Well, this is a very profound knowledge, really. And if we go back to the beginning of Western medicine, to Hippocrates, he said all disease begins in the gut. Well, where did he get that? He got that from Ayurveda thousands of years before. That's the premise of Ayurveda, is that if you don't take care of your gut, then you're going to have all kinds of other problems. And essentially, this amounts to incoherence. So we have TM to create coherence in the brain, and you can see that in terms of the EEG. And we have Ayurveda to help us with our gut-brain axis so we can create coherence within the body. And both of these are habits. Ayurveda is a series of habits. And it's really Maharshi's great genius. He's the one that really brought out the whole field of transcendental meditation. And he introduced Ayurveda. Very, very beautiful what he did in all of this. It was so fantastic. And he had this one phrase, meditate and do what you know to be right. So this is a beautiful message from Maharshi. It sort of identifies, the essence of coherence. If you want to create coherence, create an experience that creates coherence. Transcending to that finest field of creation. It's a field of perfectly orderly, infinite coherence. The creative intelligence of nature is there. Transcend to that, it creates coherence in the brain. We see that in the EEG. And that change in the brain helps everything in our lives, helps us change other habits. And then we introduce Maharshi Ayurveda. It's a beautiful series of really habits that are geared for each individual. So if I'm a Pitta person, a P energy person, I need to eat my meals on time. I need to eat certain foods because they will not create havoc in our body. If I eat hot, spicy foods, I can when I'm young. I can get away with anything when I'm young, but particularly when I'm older and I start eating hot, spicy foods, it aggravates this P energy. And you get hyperacidity, you get all kinds of different problems. And so knowing all these different things in Ayurveda, this 1,000-year-old tradition, can help create coherence in our body. And finally, the great thing is when we meditate in groups, we can create coherence for the whole world. So in this book, the coherence effect, we talk about TM, all the research, we talk about all the things that are going on in the brain. Then we talk about Ayurveda, all these wonderful tricks. We talk about different diets, different habits for people, depending upon your energy type, your dosha type. And then we talk about Vedic sounds, because Vedic sounds is a whole other area that Maharshi introduced, which tells us that this Vedic tradition had some incredible technology to create coherence in the world. And we use this group practice of meditation and these Vedic sounds to do amazing things. So it's a new science, a new wave of knowledge for the world. Boy, does it need it right now. What a mess the world's in right now. But Maharshi said there would be a phase transition as we move from a kind of incoherent world into a coherent world. If you take liquid helium, of course, everybody's familiar with liquid helium in your little laboratory at home. Get it down to absolute zero. You need a lot of energy to do that. And you watch that liquid helium. It's very kind of like going like this, and suddenly at the phase transition, it gets very active, bubbling. And then you get it down to absolute zero, and it's perfectly coherent. If you take a piece of metal and get it there, the current flows frictionlessly. Everything is 100% coherent. It's like a new world, this absolute coherence. And that's what we tap into in meditation. Anyway, Mario, that's my little talk there. I'm sure you'll have some very probing questions.
Well, thank you for, it is a brilliant PowerPoint. You can only wish that every meditator in the world could see this very brief but packed presentation, Dr. Wallace. It's remarkable. Here's a question. I've heard the talk about coherence before. There's been for years talk that TM creates brainwave coherence. During the pandemic, I visited my doctor and I asked my doctor, what are you doing to stay away from the coronavirus? And he said, the main thing I do is keep my immune system strong. Is there a direct relationship between the coherence effect you're talking about and keeping the immune system strong?
Absolutely. I mean, if our immune system is weak, viruses, bacteria take over the body, and suddenly there's no coherence. So the whole essence of our physiology is to create this protective barrier so that whatever decay is going on in the environment is not going on inside us. And the immune system is one of the most important tools our body uses to protect us from all the bacteria and viruses. Now, we have to realize that a lot of bacteria are friendly. And so these bacteria go into our gut. We have 30 trillion of these bacteria in our gut, and they actually help us. They're phenomenal. So it's not like everything is bad out there. And same with viruses. We have a lot of viruses in our gut. The gut viruses live inside the bacteria. So we house this whole world inside us. But if there's this gut barrier, most of these bacteria live inside this whole digestive tube, and surrounding it are 80% of our immune system. So most of our immune system is along this track, and it's protecting us from some of these bad bacteria getting in. And the friendly bacteria protect us also. They try to, beat up the bad bacteria, but some get in there and some are horrible. Some bad viruses, we know, obviously, and they get through the gut barrier and get into our system. Now, COVID is a whole different world because it gets in through the nasal passage. And that's a whole other microbiome. We have friendly bacteria that are living all through our nasal and even in our lungs. They used to think our lungs were sterile, but they're not sterile. And these friendly bacteria live there. And the gut and the lung communicate. So, even people with COVID can get not only nasal and respiratory problems, but they can also get digestive problems too. So this is a huge area of knowledge. And the great thing is that Ayurveda, this is really what Ayurveda is about, strengthening the immune system. And just their behavioral techniques of daily routine, how you live your life, practicing transcendental meditation strengthens the immune system. Eating proper food, sleeping properly, having proper exercise. All these things actually strengthen the immune system. So it is a whole science of knowledge to help strengthen the immune system. Of course, COVID is, a very difficult virus, and nobody really understands it at this stage. There's so many things that it can do. But everybody, if you look at the common recommendations, there are things like vitamin D or zinc or, sleeping, no stress, so even modern medicine is sort of saying, hey, eat well, sleep well, keep away from stress, because we know stress increases cortisol, that dampens the immune system. Even modern medicine is saying, hey, live a good life, and that will strengthen your immune system. And that's Ayurveda. It just has these beautiful routines to help you maintain inner coherence in your body. And that inner coherence enables you to be more adaptable. You can then really meet the demands of the environment, the ever-changing environment, and maintain your inner coherence.
I'd like to remind everyone, you can still send in questions. You can send them to questions@tm.org. Or if you would like, you could send them directly through the Zoom webinar chat. Keith, one other question that's come in is just about recently there's been a talk by Dr. Maharaj, and he's someone you inspired to learn how to meditate. He's from
Wonderful man.
South Florida. And
yeah.
Dr. Maharaj in that lecture said you talked to him quite a bit about TM, inspired him about TM and about the immune system. Is there something special? It seems like every doctor is recommending vitamin D, D3, and zinc. Can you give us any insight why that is?
These things are interesting. I mean, the physiology of zinc and vitamin D and other areas are kind of like, at least it's mainstream medicine now. I mean, it's one of probably hundreds of different things you could do to strengthen the body. And D3 has many, many different effects on the body and on the immune system, as does zinc. I mean, zinc is a cofactor in so many biochemical reactions. It's hard to even, think of the body without it because it's involved in so many different things. And for some reason in our society, we just happen to have low levels of these. I don't know whether it's the food we're eating, not getting out in the sun, because, vitamin D should be produced by the sun. So many, many different factors, but at least these are some that modern medicine is agreeing upon, as well as the most common things like sleep and meditation and so forth.
There's a number of questions.
I see one up here about eating disorders.
Yeah.
That's a so complicated an issue. I wouldn't want to give any medical advice or try to resolve anything, but Ayurveda is a very good area like that. There is a book I wrote, which is called The Rest and Repair Diet, with my wife and with a wonderful doctor, Dr. Jim Davis, and also a wonderful practitioner, Dr. Andrew Stenberg. And it's got recipes by Alexis Farley. And so that's I wouldn't substitute that for a medical. You have to go to your doctor and check, but it's a nice, simple elimination diet, uses a lot of Ayurveda, and it basically tries to reboot the system. Ayurveda does this, where they have something called Agni. When your Agni becomes low, that's your digestive fire, really hard to digest things. And then you get something called Ama, which is these undigested foods or toxins. So it's a very simple kind of diet to help boost Agni and to eliminate Ama. Again, always do these things with the cooperation of your doctor, because you may have certain conditions that really require very specific treatment. But this is just a general, simple elimination diet, which helps a lot of people.
Well, this relates to one of the questions. Is there a specific diet that facilitates coherence?
Yeah, but it's different for everyone. I mean, there is no one diet for everyone because we're all different. You remember I showed you that Genomics? Yeah. That's the Ayurveda body type, what they call Prakriti, with your genes. We all have a different set of genes. If I gave a diet for a Pitta type, it'd be different than for a Vata type or for a Kapha type. It would be different depending upon what your state of your digestive system. You'd have to have, someone check out if you've been eating the wrong foods for a long period of time, you're older, your system may be way out of whack. So you really have to do something to reboot it. And then once you've rebooted the system, got rekindled what they call the Agni, then you can go on the specific Pitta diet, Vata diet, Kapha diet. I mean, we do so many things wrong. It's just ridiculous fast food, the whole world of food out there is a disaster. But the good news is, because of the microbiome, doctors are realizing what changes the microbiome. It's diet. That's one of the biggest factors. And the microbiome is huge for health. There are hundreds of clinical studies showing how these gut bacteria can influence your mind and your body. And food is one of the biggest things that influences. So it took this strange discovery to tell us, hey, you got to eat right, guys. It's very, basic to the coherence in your body. You eat wrong, you put pressure on the digestive system. Digestive system is at the basis of our health. And every traditional system of medicine knew this.
Keith, does the question that follows up on this, does your book delineate the correct foods for the different three energies?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, it's in both books. It's in all the books, actually. The coherence effect, it's there. Absolutely, it's there. It's in Total Brain Coaching. It's in the Rest and Repair Diet. Most of my books are available on Amazon. The Coherence Effect actually officially comes out November 4th, but you can pre-order it now. And the other books are under my name, Robert Keith Wallace, on Amazon.
Keith says, thank you. They just said, will you say the name of the book again? I'm Pitta and my husband is Kapha.
Yeah, that's classic. I know that one. Usually it's even more typical is you have like a Pitta guy, super athlete, and Vata, skinny, very beautiful wife. The Pitta guy's got the windows open in the middle of winter. The Vata wife is running around shutting them because she's freezing. And so there's this clash. And then what do you do when you come to food? And you're right. It is challenging. There's no doubt. And then you add kids to it. So you've got kids that are every combination. It's a lot of work. There's no doubt about it. And you just have to try the best you can. You're going to find, you might cook a little something extra for your husband, and maybe you'll put some extra spices for you. Let's see, your Pitta, husband's Kapha. Okay, well, the husband needs some spice. He needs to get his digestion going. You don't need those hot spices. So, maybe you add those hot spices at the end to his food and cook it up a little differently. Spice alone, the herbs and spices alone can change the food dramatically from being a Kapha pacifying to a Pitta pacifying. It's all there in these books, the spices, everything. And some spices are good for all types. So, but you're right, it takes a little bit of work when you've got all this, when you got a bunch of kids, that it's like, oh my God. But why is it? One kid doesn't want to eat this, the other kid does want to eat this. And you think, now you all got to eat the same thing. Wake up. We're different. We're going to have different likes. You can make them eat all the same thing, but it's not necessarily going to be the best for them. So, and if you're a Pitta mom and you got a Vata kid and you try to impose your Pitta powerful, purposeful, energetic life on your delicate, creative, wonderfully imaginative Vata kid, that can be a lot. Now, that's another book, Dharma Parenting. It's a whole other book that Dr. Fred Travis and I wrote together with our wives. And it's a wonderful book on this interaction between the different types.
Keith, one person mentioned, and it's probably not uncommon, that when they take the different surveys to determine what energy level they are,
sure,
it comes out differently different times.
Yeah, there's two things about that. They have this thing where they call one your prakriti, which is what you're born with. It's kind of like the genes you're born with. And then they have the vrikriti, which is what your current state of balance is. Now, all these quizzes, they measure kind of a combination. The more you talk about physical characteristics, that's more the prakriti. In the quiz I give, it's much more oriented toward your vrikriti. What is your current state of balance? Are you sleeping, not sleeping, so forth? So that is going to be different at different times in your life. And that's why we often say, take the quiz more than once, take it as many times you want. On a lot of our websites, like on the website for most of my books, you'll find a free quiz. I have one website, it's called docgut.com. Can you write that in, Mario? docgut.com. And that website, there's a quiz, there's all kinds of articles, blogs about different foods, there's all the diets. That's one website, docgut.com. That's for those that are more concerned about the foods. Another website, Mary, oh good, you got that one up. No, DOC gut.
Okay.
I know the computer auto-corrected. It doesn't like docgut.com, so yes, that's right. And the one I put, there you go. Now put up, the next one is coherenceeffect.com. And that has quite a bit of stuff too into it. There's quizzes in there too. So either one of those. Yeah, one word, coherence effect, but that's good. Thank you.
Auto-corrected.
Yeah, I know. Autocorrect drives you crazy at times. Okay, any other questions?
Plenty. One, I won't put you too much on the spot. Do you consider yourself enlightened? You want to go light on that one?
No.
Totally seem to be.
No, I do not.
My sister was just saying, gosh, he looks so young. How is he doing it? He's so happy all the time. Well, you've got something, so you don't have to.
I'm on the path to enlightenment.
Yeah.
Thanks to Maharishi, I've had amazing experiences. I love it. I'm enjoying this path. I love it, every minute of it. Maharishi was the happiest person. He was enlightened, no doubt about it. He was the happiest person I ever met in my life. It just, wonderful. Now, if I miss a golf shot, I can get a little upset here. I'm not completely enlightened,
You and everyone else in the world.
There's some drama occasionally.
Yeah, it's good. There's a little spice in the life. Does TM help lost souls find their path in life?
Oh yeah, hugely. Oh my God, that may be that's really beautiful. That should be a title of a book. Oh my God, I love it. I would say almost more than anything, that's what it does. I mean, that's what it did for me. I mean, the minute I learned TM, I realized I was sitting in a class at UCLA and everybody was moving around me there. And I was sitting quiet for the first time in my life. And I went, oh my God, this is amazing. And I knew, okay, this is my path. This is what I want to do. This is extraordinary. But different people have different insights. But, Maharishi would say, you really have to know who you are first before you can figure out what you're going to do in life.
I was wondering if Dr. Wallace could talk more about that super neural network.
Ooh, great stuff. Yeah. And if you hear Fred Travis this afternoon, he's really good in this. We just wrote this wonderful paper. Fred, he's done a magnificent job in the research he's done, in the work he's done. We did it also with Alrik Arenender and my son. And it's right up to date. People are talking about these neural networks. If you read, and I'm sure everybody looks in a neurophysiological journal and reads all these articles, which are completely ridiculous most of the time, but that's what they're talking about, neural networks. They don't even talk about individual areas of the brain anymore. They talk about networks. And they talk about when all these areas come together, that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is an integration between many different parts. It could be the threat network. It could be the executive network. All kinds of networks for creativity, networks for everything. And these networks are the coherence between different parts of the brain, the integration between different parts of the brain. So that is the new language of neuroscience. And some wonderful research on TM has been done, which really shows this increase in this integration, in the liveliness of these neural networks. There's something called the default network. Again, Dr. Travis can talk more about it, but it's a kind of resting state when you're not active. And during TM, that seems to become activated. And that distinguishes TM from all kinds of other techniques, which actually don't do that. So it's this powerful stuff, the neuroscience. It really helps distinguish TM from many, many different techniques out there.
Keith, please mention again, a person asks, the course that you're teaching.
Oh, that's a great
and in the course that you're teaching,
yeah,
do you go over this same very recent PowerPoint and these
Yeah.
points.
Yeah. I took a lot of it from there. I apologize if you go see it. Yeah, it's MUM online. If you go to mum.edu/online, I think that's where it is. It's
They're
called
enrichment under the online courses, and they're in the enrichment courses. It's a
Okay.
special link to those.
Yeah, if you can go onto your computer and find it, and then put in the URL for them.
Okay.
It's a great course because we talk very much about the things I talked about, total brain coaching, and my son and I are together, which is absolutely wonderful. I love being with my son, so that's fantastic. He's a coach. He's what they call an agile coach. He works in the computer science world. And you know, all these big companies, Facebook, Amazon, Google, I mean, they have a large number of programmers and programmers who work in teams. And you know, that's quite a challenge. These are the geeks and they don't actually work together that well. So they hire tons of coaches to help them work together in a more coherent fashion. And coherence is really the essence of a successful business. You know, you have a corporate culture, you have a particular mindset. When that's coherent, that company is successful. When the company as a whole, when the teams as a whole, when the individuals as a whole. So we talk a lot about that in this course, and then we bring in amazing speakers. We had Andrew Stenberg, who did self-pulse diagnosis, a fantastic demonstration. That's an amazing technique. You learn that, and in just a few minutes, you can just quiet down the body. It's fantastic. It's something Marshy brought out. Amazing. So he does that. We have this wonderful lady, Pat Reed, who's a top agile coach. Who, you know, coaches whole companies and whole countries. A really amazing lady. Her talk is fantastic. This whole notion of being comfortable in an uncomfortable environment, being adaptive. We just had Dr. Warren Blank, who's a wonderful executive coach. He's fantastic. He gave really a clear, detailed about what it means to be a coach. It's a very entertaining PowerPoint that he gave. Dr. Fred Travis is talking this Sunday, and we have a whole line of other wonderful speakers. I think have you had Steve Farber on yet? He's going to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. We've got Gordon Montgomery. He's now a master's student here, but he's a top executive coach. We have David Bishop, who you had on, who's an amazing guy. And we have Alexandra Leslie, who's a super top coach. We just have wonderful people. We have Jim Bagnola, who's a great friend of Warren Blank, been around for many years, very charismatic, wonderful speaker. And it's just going to go on and on. You can't believe how many great coaches are out there. We really want to train health coaches, life coaches, executive coaches. I mean, we have a great thing to add, great techniques to add. TM is huge. Adding Ayurveda, huge. Marshy gave us this amazing knowledge. And Marshy himself was the master coach of coaches. I mean, he knew exactly how to take a person from here to there. It was just beautiful. I mean, it was, you know, and the Bhagavad Gita is a whole story about coaching, really.
Yeah. So many of these great coaches, actually, you think Keith learned having studied with Maharishi?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, of course, Dr. Warren Blank and Jim Bagnola. I mean, these guys, you know.
Yeah.
And they, they talk about Maharishi in their talks. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Keith, here's one thing I think everyone's probably thinking: how to get their friends to hear this particular webinar. And you can go and find this online in a few days. Obviously, it's not going to be up immediately following this, but at miutalks.org. All of the previous National Coherence talks are there now, and this talk will be up shortly, just in the next few days. Take a few days for it to come up. But I think a lot of people, I know I will share this with a lot of my friends. It's really enlightening, Keith.
Thank you very much.
Also, your course. Let me put up the link to.
It's called Total Brain Coaching.
Yeah. And the course is Total Brain.
Oh, here's a fun one. Somebody did a study comparing sensitivity to touch between Vatas, Pittas. Wow, that's a wonderful thing in the chat there. Why would touch sensitivity be determined by body type that you are born with rather than a body type manifesting at the current moment? Well, it's both. I mean, that's what Ayurveda says, that you're born with a certain set of genes, that's your prakriti, but then it's modified by the environment. It's kind of nature versus nurture. So, you know, we eat food that changes gene expression. So I can eat, you know, certain kind of food. It can then go into my body and change the genes that are being expressed. Genes get turned on and off by all kinds of environmental factors. So your sensitivity to touch, you know, as a Vata, naturally, and this is all set up by the way the brain interprets pain, because, you know, we have a whole pain pathway, but then the brain has an impact. It kind of gates what comes through, what doesn't come through. It has a huge control over how we experience pain. And Vatas, we know, are more sensitive in everything. They get overloaded by sensory stimuli, very creative, very imaginative, real artists, but we know artists can have a very gentle and delicate temperament. And so pain sensitivity could very much be related to specific genes that are related to a specific body type, but it can be modified. You know, you can be doing things, maybe you're a karate expert or something, and you're smashing your hand into some sandbag over and over again, and you can modify it because whatever the body adapts. So maybe I'm born with a super sensitivity, but then through a variety of different things I do, I change the way the brain interprets pain. And so I experience it differently.
Keith, the question is, when you work with companies, do you only work with those who do TM?
Well, you know, TM in companies is a delicate issue. And I think that in the past, our greatest success has been going to an owner of a company, particularly a private company, and he learns to meditate, and then immediately he makes it a company-wide program that anybody can do. But I think right now what you see is that the early days when we did this, it was kind of innovative. Now every company has some type of meditation, mindfulness, this, that. So it's very common in companies. And I don't think you can force people to do one particular technique. What you can do if you go into a company is give them a choice and show them the research. They're smart, let them decide what's going to be the most effective and powerful technique and what is the research. But forcing TM on anybody never works. You know, it always has to be by choice. And people have to feel like, okay, I want to do this. And once they have that receptivity, fantastic. Then you can give them everything.
Well, Keith, I have to say, you must feel incredibly fulfilled to see meditation, particularly TM, become so mainstream that virtually companies throughout the world, institutions, I don't think you can talk to anybody in the mainstream about meditation and have them say, oh, I don't hear about it. I never heard of it. You must be fulfilled because you're one of the prime people who helped Maharishi Mahesh Yogi make this mainstream, to fulfill the dream he had coming out of India in the 1950s, where no one really knew about meditation. It was some exclusive thing for monks. And now it's recognized to be for everyone.
Greatest joy of my life. I can't even think of what kind of luck I had to get into that position at that time, and forever, ever grateful to Maharishi and for nature for allowing me to do that, because that was such a gift in my own life. And, you know, my only desire now is that they recognize that TM is so much better than all these other techniques. You'll see in the book, The Coherence Effect, Jay Marcus did some wonderful interviews of super top people, and they really give remarkable testimonials. I tried this, I tried that, I tried this, I did everything possible. And then I learned TM and it was so easy. Now I'm actually meditating. I wasn't even meditating before. So I think that's the key now is it's out there. Everybody's familiar with meditation. Now we just have to give them the best possible coherence creating technique there is, transcendental meditation.
Jay Gurudev.
Thank you, Mario.
You're a treasure, and believe me, all of us honor and treasure the contribution you've made to support Maharishi's desire to have this be global for everyone. I'd like to suggest at the end here that you make this, you complete this webinar by viewing Dr. Fred Travis tomorrow. What a 1-2 punch.
Well, he's on this afternoon, isn't he? Or is that tomorrow?
I think it's tomorrow.
Oh, okay, good.
If anyone,
I think it's today. I thought it was later this afternoon, but maybe I'm wrong.
My colleagues,
What are they telling you? There's got to be on there that somebody that knows. We're sort of clueless here. So I know he's talking live in my course tomorrow from 2 to 3:30.
Well, Fred can talk and talk and talk. So, I mean, he's bliss. Fred can do it all day long.
I know.
Yes, it's tomorrow at 11.
Oh, good. Okay, so he's tomorrow at 11. Wow, he's going to be.
You're trying to confuse me. I'm confused.
I know. Well, that's you've done it to me a number of times, so I think it's a little payback.
Let's not get into that.
No, we better not get into.
Join again tomorrow. It'll really complete what Keith's talking about today at 11 a.m. Central Time for another just totally enlightening webinar. Dr. Fred Travis, one of the world's most published researchers in the area of meditation and brain function. We'll be talking about the neuroscience of enlightenment, learn how the brain can maintain a state of deep inner peace even while it's engaged in challenging dynamic activity.
He's going to go from talking about the neurophysiology of enlightenment to an hour later talking about the neurophysiology of leadership. Isn't that cool? That's pretty cool.
Very cool. And speaking of coaches, I have tomorrow night at 4 p.m. Central, your golf coach, Stephen Yellen.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Because he's going to talk about how any great performance in golf or other sports depends on the degree of silence in the mind.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's going to be a really fun discussion. It's going to be how all of our performance all day long, every day, every decision we make, not just on a golf course, but in life, the quality of it will depend on silence in the mind.
He's a great coach, wonderful. He talks about wholeness, not breaking wholeness. He is so cool.
Has it improved your golf game, Keith?
Oh, enormously, yeah. He also pointed out that I'm the hardest case he's ever had. So come on, My intellect interferes all the time.
All right. Well, we're going to see how to get in that zone and stay in that zone.
Yeah.
Tomorrow evening as well. So it's a great weekend of knowledge. We wish you all a very beautiful fall weekend on all levels. Thank you so much for joining us. All the best. Thank you, Keith.
Bye, Mario. Thank you, everyone.